Okay, so as a post game here, obviously the Oilers lose 4-1. I think to me this scenario, I don't know. You correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff. Based on what I watched, I don't know if you're watching the stream. I just basically said the first period. I thought obviously it's so rough to start a game where the goalie allows 2 goals on 2 shots. But personally, for me, I'm looking at the rest of that first period. I thought the Oilers were a mess defensively. I think the amount of odd man rushes and the amount of scenarios that they had in front of the net, if not for Mike Smith, it was probably 4 or 5 nothing Chicago.
I know.
I thought Edmonton completely dominated the second period. I mean, the shots prove that. I kind of said I sometimes get frustrated that people use shots as an indicator, but in this case, shots were an indicator. They dominated the second period in every aspect and had 20 shots on net to show for it. Fleury stood on his head. And in the third period, I don't know what happened. You're in a 2-1 game. You have a chance at home to come back in the game, only down by 1, and they put up a stinker in that third period. So, just in general, overall, are you kind of on the same page as me? And what do you think of the overall game?
We can kind of go through it here period by period, but the Cliff's notes here. I mean, the first period clearly started out with Hyman hitting a post. That was the first thing that happened in the game. You know, you can get off to that exciting start and then try to build on it, or you can let the real play take over, which is kind of what I think they let happen. I mean, for Nugent Hopkins to go down and take that penalty then like literally 2 minutes later into the period, and then like 5 seconds or 10 or 15 seconds into that initial penalty kill, they get scored on. Like, how you ever, like, that's just a horrible way to start a game. And we obviously know the Oilers' trouble starting games. It's no secret. It's a problem, especially with how well they play after they do score first. I think they're like 11-2 this year, something like impressive, but 13 games out of 40, you can't be getting the you got to be scoring the first goal more than that. So I'm just kind of looking here. Second goal, Smith, another weak one, 2 in on 2 shots. And then they get a decent power play going. They kind of start to turn it around at that point when it had turned 2-1. Smith, I think, had made another big save. But then Bouchard coming in, misses the net, wraps around, kills that power play. Like, that was such a frustrating part. If you're going to get that many power plays and you're going to complain and get them, you can't just be coming in and wiring those shots wide from like at the top of the circle.
I will say, I think the Oilers did miss a lot of second chance opportunities. Like, they were firing it on net 100%, but a lot of those like, even what ended up being, I know you're getting to this, but even what ended up being Draisaitl's goal in the power play, it was an amazing save by Fleury, but Evander Kane basically got nothing on that rebound. And essentially, you can say that the defense was good for the Hawks in terms of boxing it out. But
I mean, and Fleury played phenomenal. I mean, like, especially when you're going across from that goaltending on a night like tonight, it's just so much more obvious. Like, to see what you're getting, like your 41-year-old goalie like flopping around the crease. Like, and trust me, I like Mike Smith for what he did for us. I guess getting us to the playoffs last year, but I mean, at some point you got to be. I have a question though for you, man. This might be like, you guys, the comments can give me this opinion too. I've always argued with people or I've wondered what their thoughts are. The Oilers seem that their ideal power play setup is getting the puck back to Bouchard or Nurse or Barry, whoever is on that in the center of the blue line. And it's so puzzling to me as to be why that's their ideal move. Like, you play defense, so I'm curious to hear your insight, and the people in the chat, I'm curious to hear their too. But it's like, if you have McDavid or Draisaitl sitting on the half boards there with their snapshot and their power, I know it doesn't work for every team if you don't have guys with that shot, like obviously Line A, Ovechkin. These guys, you don't have to worry about it. McDavid, Draisaitl. Like, that should be the number one priority. I wrote it down in my notes last night during the Golden Knights game. It happened tonight. Like, it's like the main goal they're trying to get is back to Barry on the blue line for them to just like rip a clapper high or off the shin pads if you watched the game last night. So, like, what are your thoughts on like that being the setup? Like, and it's like so far into the year, and like, especially when you got those superstars, you know, you can rely on the wings. Like, why?
Well, yeah, I will say that I thought it, like, because I was kind of going on both sides here, and I kind of find it funny because the commentators, and I respect them for sure. I think they were kind of trying to point towards the reasoning why the Oilers were firing so many shots into shin pads tonight specifically. But yeah, as you said, they were doing it last night too. Yes, there's 3 Hawks defenders that are in like the top 5, top 10, which is crazy for block shots. So that speaks to a little bit of like, but they still allowed 40 shots on net. Anyways, my point is, yeah, I think the shot selection problem is a thing right now with the Oilers. But at the same
Okay.
time, I can
Thank you.
understand for Bouchard. That's the one guy I'll say, because Bouchard's got a freaking bomb from the point.
Yeah.
So Bouchard's the one I can understand. I do think, I've said in the past, I do think that it's just funny that Barry, he gets so many secondary assists, because that's the thing, right? They cycle off the point, so he ends up touching the puck. But at the end of the day, it's Draisaitl and McDavid or Nuge that are making the magic. So Barry ends up getting all these secondary assists because he's the second last guy to touch the puck, and then the other two guys work magic. So I agree with you in that sense that when the power play is at its best, it's because McDavid and Draisaitl are likely doing something, right?
Mhm.
I would say 90. I don't have the number in front of me, but I'd say 90% of Oilers' power play
Yeah.
success is driven
Dude,
off those two guys
the
doing
start of the
magic.
year. The start of the year when they did great, it was because Draisaitl was sitting on that like right in the middle, even in the middle of that circle on the right side, and he was snapping shots like whenever he got the puck to him. But then like it's just like we'll see 2 snapshot attempts a game, and instead we'll see like 5 rippers from the blue line that like never really get through because there's a bunch of bodies in front on a PK. You've got your own guy in Kane in front trying to like get in there. So you're worrying about all these things. It's like get it to the side and give it to Draisaitl McDavid. If you give Draisaitl that chance 3 times to shoot it off the side, he might miss the first like 1 or 2, but I mean, he's one of the best shooters. He's not going to miss that 3 times in a row. So why don't we prioritize that, and maybe our power play won't be dog shit for like again.
Yeah. Do you,
So.
Ray Ross, do you think it's, I mean, this question's thrown out all the time, but we haven't heard from you on it. Do you specifically think this is a coaching and like game management and kind of game by game problem, or do you think it's just straight out a roster structure problem and no coach coming in is fixing this team?
That's a good question.
Oh, it's a tough question for sure.
Man, I mean the real question here when it comes to that is, has the coach lost the room? Because you can only blame the coach so much for so many things, but the minute they lose the room, then it's like, okay, time to get them out. So I mean, I'd say, yeah, when it comes to the goaltending and the roster construction, we got bailed out with Evander Kane being able to come here so cheap. Like the other guys are just very inconsistent. So I was kind of like, I mean, Tippett is what he is. Like when it comes to game basis, like, I mean, he does the line blender, but not as bad as some of the old coaches. It's clear he has way too much faith in Smith, and like, I don't know, man. Like, yeah, I think it's more on the roster, as much as I hate to admit it, and the goaltending. Yeah. And you know, I think like the forwards, they're very inconsistent. Like Puljujarvi, I mean, he had a great start to the year and he's gone quiet. Yeah. They're very lucky that Kane has come in and have been like a huge positive, like on the offensive zone. It's kind of saving their asses up there in my eyes. And Hyman and Nuge finding that partnership. I actually just want to
step in on the Puljujarvi comment, because that's another thing that I didn't really get a good kind of response from, was in my one Oilers video from about a month ago.
Yeah.
I said, I was like, in my opinion, I think when you look at the Oilers roster and in terms of expendable players, in terms of trying to trade value to get value, because I think people sometimes forget that. Yeah, you could pile up a bunch of draft picks or pile up prospects. Sometimes a team just wants a good value player in the roster. So when I looked at that, I was looking at 2 guys. I was looking at Puljujarvi and Yamamoto. And Yamamoto has been kind of invisible for a lot of stretches. Puljujarvi had a really good first half. So what I was saying was, I was like, if you're trying to sell high on a guy right now, Puljujarvi's playing really well. And if you think about the style of game, like Hyman's serving a really good role for what the Oilers could do. I just said maybe consider trading Puljujarvi for whether it's value in terms of getting a top defenseman, or like going after a Chikrin, because Puljujarvi could be a piece of that, or going after a big goalie. Puljujarvi could be a piece of that. So now maybe that wasn't a bad take from myself at all, because yeah, you're right. I actually think Puljujarvi hasn't done much at all in the last, I don't know if I want to say 10 games, but it seems like recently when I've watched the Oilers, he hasn't done a whole lot. Again, maybe that's kind of line construction. Like, I don't know, he's on the 3rd line tonight, I think.
Oh, I know, man. I don't like that line. Like he definitely is a player who's played hot and cold to this point. Out of your 2 trade recommendations, I'd definitely say Yamamoto more so, because I see less upside in him. I think
but that's
a lot
what
of
I'm saying. I think Puljujarvi brings more. I think Puljujarvi brings more value to other teams, right? So I do agree with you. I think in terms of the 2 guys, I think we could all agree, Oilers fan or not, that Yamamoto's the one guy that I think Oilers fans would be more willing to give up. But how much value? Because like for me, and I was saying this trade, but I think the Oilers should be all over this trade.
Let's hear
If
it.
it was a conversation was Yamamoto for DeBrusque. I was saying that for months, right? And I think
Yeah.
that would be somewhat realistic, but I think that trade would have already happened or something along those lines because to me it just makes too much sense. But I don't think the Bruins want to do that trade maybe because Yamamoto's kind of been like DeBrusque has been kind of like disgruntled there. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with me. Yamamoto for me is just I like sometimes his battles, I like his sometimes work ethic, but to me it's just he kind of just tends to be invisible a lot of times.
Well, yeah, he's a small guy, and if you're going to be a small guy, you're going to have to pick it up in other facets of the game. Like when he first started in, he was very good at passing on that like initial dry line. I don't know if you remember that. That was from like years ago when we did the High Button podcast.
Yeah.
But he provided value in like a smart head, and he was like a honey badger type player. Like every team always wants the honey badger to come in, and we thought it was Yamamoto. It wasn't. Turned out to be Hyman, and then like whatever gets there. But I don't know, man. You make up some good points. We might have to get into like an Oilers trade video.
Yeah, we'll have to do some kind of video for the deadline.
I think there's a lot to get into there. But I will say, like on that side, it feels to me like the whole organization is just like they're in such a weird place where I have to give them credit, like where credit's due. When the year started, we saw them go on that streak where they had like 20 wins. They only had 7 losses or something like that. They get off to a real hot start. Then they do horrible for December, like 3-11-1 or something like that. Then COVID shuts it down. They come back. They win. They do go 5-0-1. Like let's not forget, it's so easy. Like when they go up and down. To be on like when the highs are high, you're like, okay, maybe this team isn't so bad. We got obviously great forwards. We got a Vander Kane coming in. Bouchard, as many mistakes as he made tonight, I don't even know if we'll have time to cover all those. He is a positive piece for this team. Nurse, he just signed that monster contract. He hasn't been horrible. I mean, he's been pretty good for them. Like we're getting guys back from injuries, so it's so easy. And you probably can get this too, because the Leafs always go through their yearly dip where they'll lose a bunch of games, and you'll be like, "What the fuck are we doing?" And and then we'll come back, and then by the playoffs, you're excited, and then they'll go through the dip again. Like like we do the same thing, so you can relate to it. But it seems like they're Holland and Tippett are stuck in this like same thing where they like if you ask me right now what the chances are they actually made a ballsy move, and you can't always be ballsy, but like trade it and put up what you're saying for Chikrin, or tried to get like a goalie they could chuck in the net and not have to worry about like 3 goals on 6 shots. I do not see it happening, man. Like these guys just, I don't know what it is. Like we got so lucky with Cam, and I keep saying that because like unless it's like given to us on a platter like that, I think the chances like we actually do make a good trade that they should make right now are just so low. And I think the chances of Tippett getting fired, unfortunately, are even lower. Like they seem very comfortable with themselves and comfortable with the ebbs and flows. Well, meanwhile, us fans are sitting around like, what the fuck did we just watch? We just watched like friggin' give up 9 goals and score, and score 1 in the past 2 games. Like so. That's a long-winded answer, but we'll have to get into it. But I just think the culture, the team has their highs and lows, and I think that the owners and everyone who matters when it comes to that stuff is just bought into that, and there's no consistent winning.
Yeah, man. No, that's why I said it's a very complex thing because the Oilers went through the stretch and then they started winning a few games. It was like 4 or 5 in a row, and then Oilers fans thought, okay, maybe we're past it. Like Evander Kane's bringing a fresh kind of but look, there's a loss to the Sens here. Like they beat the Caps, but that was a game where Samsonov shit the bed at the start, and then the Caps came back, and then they've lost 2 games in a row here where they only put up 1 goal. So yeah, I think, man, I mean, we'll wrap it up here, but I do think they had a big window to build something around. Obviously, it's hard to build something in one off season, but they did have a lot of space, and that's why I ripped into the Oilers, and I got some backlash from some Oilers fans. But man, it was wasted space to basically fill it up by CC, Keith, and Barry, and bring back the same goalie tandem. To me, that was atrocious, and I'll stand by that because it's showing right now.
It was a waste of space when you were saying how great that Hyman signing was. I will admit the other parts were not good, but like, dude, it's so easy to have a short memory in these sports. Like if we what would we have been talking about right now like a week ago or before the All-Star break when they were coming off that 5-0-1. That was a week ago, okay?
Yeah, I
So
said,
before we
yeah, when
so
it
before
happened,
we
I
say
said,
it was
let's
the
wait.
shittiest like bullshit ever, let's remember that it's so easy, and I know you got to do it, but like it's so like easy to just buy in. Like even when they were on that huge dip, I wasn't freaking out, man. Like this is how it
No, and
goes.
I
This is
actually was. I know I'm not an Oilers fan, but I wasn't either. But my consistent mindset, and I don't know if people can back me, but I've been saying it on stream, so I would think so. But my consistent mindset has been, I don't think the Oilers are built right now, but I think they're still going to make the playoffs because of their big guns. I've consistently said that. So through the rough patches or the good patches, I've just consistently said, we'll see. I don't think they're built right now. But I think they're going to make the playoffs because of their big guns. That's what I've consistently said, and I stand by that. I've said that all year. So
fair enough, man. I don't think this conversation's done. It's gonna be a
yeah,
whirlwind
we'll
end
carry
of
it
the
on another
season.
video. But
Yeah, it'll be a whirlwind end of the season.
give your shouts to the channel, and then we'll
Yeah,
wrap up the
check
combo.
out Sports with Warbs. I'm finally back. You know, this YouTube game. I always say respect to John. It ain't easy, and you know, you go just like the Oilers. You go through